Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's the Presence Posse. And we're here after a summer hiatus that has been a bit long.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, we don't usually stay away that long, but this year was an exception. So it's good to be back. And I have Bobby Cobb with me, the illustrious Kobe-wan, you like to say, don't you?
Yes.
So we're going to be
Good to
talking
be here.
about, sorry?
I said it's good to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah. We might be joined by others, but it might just be us. So we will see how it goes. We stay present to what is. I'm going to remind everybody this is actually the third installment of a trilogy that we started before summer that we called Presence and Expectations. And today, the third installment of the trilogy is Presence and Releasing Expectations. Releasing expectations. And why would we have to do that, pray tell? Would you like to say something about that, Bobby, while I do a techie thing here?
Yeah, sure. Do the techie thing. And I think the previous two podcasts in this trilogy were talking a lot about the fact that our expectations, and particularly our attachment to those expectations, are the root of an awful lot of suffering. I know we both love the quote that our partner Danielle has about expectations being embedded future resentments, that we are setting ourselves up for the potential for disappointment in the future. And today I'm thinking that we're probably going to explore, or one of the things that I'd like to explore is how the idea of releasing expectations and inquiring into those expectations can be a very useful task when we have emotions arise that are not particularly emotions that feel good for us in the moment. You know, that I refer to those as the rumble strips on the highway of life. And when we hit those rumble strips, rather than thinking, you know, oh God, life isn't going the way that I want it to go. Why can't I ever be happy? Why can't I do? That is a form of inquiry, but it's one that tends to kind of have us running down a non-productive rabbit hole. So I think it would be fun and useful to explore, can we use that inclination toward inquiry, but use a more effective inquiry that may get us some of what we want.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought up that kind of inquiry. The why me inquiry, which is really rhetorical questions. You're not, I mean, I tend to, when people bring those kinds of things up, I'll go, who are you asking?
That's a great pattern interrupt. Yeah, I like that.
I was like, who are you asking? And what kind of, are you really expecting an answer, or are you just expressing frustration? Because there's a difference between asking why me in a self-inquiring kind of way and a why me self-pitying kind of way, or a
Right.
frustration kind of way. And that can be made very clear by asking that question. Who are you asking?
Yeah, that's a beautiful summary.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
Oh, I just said thank you. I'm fine.
Uh,
I
yeah,
like I like that you brought up that now that since you asked, this that Danielle brings up every once in a while, this, or what I would call planned disappointments, right? The expectations that we put on people, on situations. I have my significant other will often ask me if we're going on holiday, or something's happening? Are you looking forward to it? And it's such a bizarre question for me. It's like, are you looking forward to it? And I stop every time. It's like, what? And
Say
then
a
I have
little
to
bit
kind
more
of
about
check.
that. I mean, that seems like a very common question that somebody would ask. So, what's going on inside of the mind of Miriam that makes that such a difficult thing to wrap your head around?
Maybe it's that there isn't much going on in the mind of Miriam, and that's kind of the point. It's like,
Beautiful.
I know that there's a difference between, for me, knowing that I'm going to a place, and so knowing that I need to take this and this and this, and sort of being present to what do I need. If I'm going to pack, if I need to pack a suitcase, or if I need to remember to take my tickets or whatever, or put on a dress because it's a fancy kind of thing, whatever. It's sort of being aware and present to the event itself. What is it?
Mm.
Then there's the idea of projecting something onto it, which I find confusing. It's like there's this idea of, are you looking forward to it? So it's like, what am I supposed to be looking forward to? Is it so? Because then I have to have some sort of scenario in my mind about, this is going to be fun, or this is going to be exciting, or I'm looking forward to spending time with this or this person, and what that's going to be like, or what it was like the last time. So I'm remembering that. It's like, it doesn't, to me, seem particularly present. I can be present to the memory without projecting it onto whatever is coming. That doesn't mean it's always like that, but I do notice that when I get asked that question, I will often experience confusion, because then it's all of a sudden I have to be looking somewhere else in time or
Right.
something. Yeah, if that makes any sense. And maybe there's an expectation thing. I don't have them. Because I'm just thinking of recently, holidays and that sort of thing, and that sort of, I know where I'm going, but I have no idea what's going to happen when I get there. I have no idea what's going to happen between now and getting on the plane and all of that. So it's being with it all as it unfolds, and everything becomes so magical then, because I don't have an idea ahead of time about whatever.
I like that. Although, as you're describing it, I'm thinking to myself that kind of sounds like that your experience of the future trips are so mindful and so present. I mean, totally modeling what we practice and preach here. But in my own situation, I notice that I spend some mental bandwidth on the way managing my expectations, because once I've booked a trip, like every part of the process of a trip brings a little bit of joy. I love doing the research ahead of time. I love trying to hack the best way to get there and find good deals, and all of that is kind of fun. But I get really excited about going on trips. And I've noticed in the past that sometimes that's worked against me, that like I've gone to do something that I had just blown up so much in my mind that there was almost no hope that reality was going to sync up with my imagination. I was just imagining and investing so much into the vacation that, when I get there, I'll be able to relax when I get there, so I'm kind of mentally time traveling. And that's just, I've always loved traveling. It's just such a sense of adventure. And I went on a cool trip this summer while we were on our hiatus. And I found myself really managing, like, don't get too excited, don't get, I was just like pulling the reins in. And my experience of being there, I went on a kind of a photo safari and a bird watching trip to Kenya. And like the first day that we were out in the field, like after we had been out there for 2 hours, I, I had already seen so many things, and my mind was in this constant state of being blown that I just flashed back to the fact that, like a week and 2 weeks and 3 weeks earlier, I was, trying to rear in my expectations. I was managing those expectations. But the reality that showed up was so much greater than anything that I could have imagined in my wildest dreams, that I just kind of busted up laughing. And I was with a group of people, so everybody's like, what's funny? And I'm laughing. I just shared with people that, for the past 3 weeks, I've been really managing my expectations so I didn't get my hopes up too much and then turn out to be disappointed. And I'm just realizing now what a joke it was, thinking, a cosmic joke, that I would need to manage my expectations to this. But that does point to exactly what you're saying, that because I very effectively did manage my expectations, your approach is more to just, it sounded like, at least what I heard, was just not to really have any expectations, to know that you're going on the trip, to plan to the trip, but to approach it with a sense of curiosity and awe and wonder, and just look for what is amazing there. And that is, if I heard what you said correctly. So I mean, it seems like just as I'm hearing your approach, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's exactly where I'm working toward getting there. And for me, it still is a work in progress. Maybe not. Maybe next time I will have permanently learned the lesson, and I'll just show up, and the idea of, are you looking forward to the trip, will just become this wonderful pattern interrupt, like, looking forward, what would that look like? To have expectations, how would they be?
Yes, have expectations and then let them, then release them. I have to admit, my brain kind of went blah, 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 when you said something about my approach, because I've never, like, it's not like I was approach. It's not a, but I get it, but it's not a, I just realized as you said it that I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, to me, my brain doesn't think of it as an approach. It's just like, I just don't. And it's really funny because my significant, I call him the Viking, my partner, we just celebrated 32 years together. So we've known each other for 33 years. And he has been asking me that question for like 32 years. And every once in a while I go, you would think you would have learned by now that there's no point in asking me the question. But I think he's kind of hoping, in a way, excuse me, hoping for a different answer, because generally speaking, in a way, it would let him know, I'm speculating, it would let him know that, like, things that he's planned or anything like that would be something, an indication that I'm happy that he's done it. Like, I'm looking forward to doing what he's planned for us, for example, or what I've planned for us. And that might be comforting somehow. For me, it's the same thing as, I'm noticing the question in my mind when I sit, for example. One of the things I love doing, I'm very fortunate, I live by the water, by the fjord, and I love sitting outside and just being with the water, just being there. And people are there and whatever, and there's a cafe and all kinds of stuff, and just being there. And sometimes I'll notice my mind, if there's something going on, or something that I haven't finished, or some sort of seemingly problem-like thing, might show up in my mind, my thoughts. And I notice that I will feel some sort of something, like a discomfort or something that isn't now, what I call now.
Mm.
It will be something attached to something else, like a thought, um, a concern, which is also a thought. Like I don't go with the labels. I just kind of go, well, that's a thought. It just makes things easier for me. And I'll notice, like, why would I want to be there when I could be here? And then just let it go. Because here, right now, is so juicy. Like, it's so gorgeous. I don't want anything else.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of because I remember when I first, like years and years and years and years and years ago, when I discovered Eckhart Tolle, and he talked about not going towards the joy and that sort of looking forward to things, that positive expectations, if you want to call it that. And people would say, well, when you're not being attached to the anger, you're not attached to the joy. And he goes, what do you think? And his point was, of course not. And I thought, well, but I want my joy, not realizing that being not unattached to all of these other things and just being right now is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But giving myself that chance to experience that fully changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
and I
that's,
mean, as you say, your expectations couldn't have compared with what you actually experienced when you got there.
although I have had times where my expectations were that an event or an accomplishment or reaching a goal, it doesn't have to necessarily be a trip, um, a journey of any type in which you are building in a lot of expectations into that, where you can believe that, having just accomplished the goal or made the trip or done the event or had the experience or whatever it is going to give you X, Y, and Z. And what I hear you pointing to is pointing us back to the understanding that everything that we are seeking is already inside of us. And to the degree that we understand that, then now all of a sudden these expectations can become a useful tool for inquiry to go into, okay, what am I looking for? And in fact, if I can share a quick, I'll do this really quick, a quick story of my very first coaching client in this idea. And this was back in the early 90s. And it really was like my spark client, my client that just got me looking to, wow, what's going on here? And this was a friend of mine. It wasn't actually a coaching client. And we just did like buddy coaching, even though that really wasn't a thing back then. We both committed to big goals and committed to holding each other accountable and committed to being cheerleaders for one another. I had a big goal. He had a big goal. And it turned out we both hit our goal that we worked on for the entire year. But my friend went into a state of darkness and despair. And that seemed like a really weird reaction to me. And then, so we were talking about it, and that really, it lit or blew oxygen onto the ember of this flame that is alive within me now. That what was it? And he had two big goals, and they were massive goals for him, and he accomplished it both. But his challenge was that he assumed all of the problems that he was experiencing in his life perceived problems that he was experiencing in his life would be solved when he hit that goal. And he hit the goal, but the problems were still there. And so he was like confused and disappointed and felt like that he wasn't understanding how life actually worked. And that started us both off on different journeys. For him, it was a journey that led him to do something else altogether. It was a career path changing exploration, actually, for both of us, because back then I was a financial advisor, and now I'm a whatever it is that I am now.
A wizard.
Coach, a wizard. And so it was a thread that we both pulled. But for him, I hit the goal, and it was just a goal that I had that I thought was worthy striving for. And other than setting the goal and working toward it, like having a goal of being able to reduce your handicap from a 10 to a 5, if you're a golfer, that can be a goal. But if you think, well, once I'm a 5 handicap, then all of a sudden it's going to be nothing but blue skies and sunshine for the rest of my life, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. If you think that maybe I'll enjoy the game of golf a little bit more, that may or may not be true. But to the degree that we think we'll be happy when we achieve this, that to me seems like a toxic expectation, like just something that almost is guaranteed. And that's what I was trying to, in my prep to Kenya, I'm like, I don't want to build this up so much in my mind that the reality isn't going to be able to compare it. And I was successfully able to go there without a whole lot of expectations, just assuming that I was going to have a really good time. And, I did. So now the question becomes, was the fact that I was approaching it with that sense of awe and wonder and curiosity that you described when we started this conversation, the reason that I was just like so blown away? And I don't know the answer to that, but my intuition tells me that, if you go into something just looking for the mystery and the wonder of it all and being very tapped into that, you're just setting yourself up for a better experience, and it'd be interesting. I see Rosalie is on. She said hi to us. So maybe you can, Miriam, you can answer this, and maybe Rosalie can type in an answer as well. When you think of times that you have experienced disappointment and you're just finding yourself, well, God, I thought that was going to be really good, but that was really kind of a, boring, or maybe it was even a shit show. How much of that is located in the gap between the reality of what unfolded and what you had programmed yourself to expect in those expectations? Did you go to this party assuming that you were going to find the one and leave there having met a lot of people, but nobody that is the one? And therefore, are you labeling this experience as a disappointment? That would just be an example of an inquiry that we could do.
Yep.
And using the disappointment as one of the rumble strips on the highway of life, and bringing us back home again to say, what's really going on here?
Yeah. I love the question. And it's really funny because earlier today, I just did a quick live on my profile about the idea of, there are two sort of differing ideas. One is the universe gives you what you need in order to learn what you need to learn. and the other is you don't get what you want, you don't get what you need, you get what you get. So
Yeah.
those two things to me seem quite different. And so I sort of did a short exploration into the, okay, I get what I get. So, and then from what I get, I learn something. If I choose to go in that direction, I learn something from that. But did I need that to get through my life and have a great life and all of that? Not necessarily. But we can't control other people and they can do stuff. And then we're in a situation where something happened and we have to deal with it, especially if we're resisting it.
Yeah.
Right. And any kind of overwhelming situation or shock, there will be some sort of resistance in it because we're not able to take it all in. It's overwhelming. For example, so there'd be a kind of a resistance because it's too much for our nervous system, for example. And then, well, would I have had to learn that? Not necessarily, but because that happened, I probably do now how to deal with that. And maybe I get stronger and maybe I don't, whatever. So I was thinking about that earlier, doing that short live, but also in relation to this particular posse talk, because a lot of women, especially, are brought up to expect or have an idea of that Prince Charming is going to come. They're going to marry, they're going to find Prince Charming and live happily ever after. And a lot of the movies are like that, excuse me, where they find, and even movies where like Pretty Woman was super popular. She started out as a call girl, and then she meets a rich guy, and then they end up, falling in love and all of that happily ever after. And he doesn't even drive up in a white horse. He drives up in a white limousine. So this idea of, I go to an event and I'm wanting to meet someone. But what's in my programming, and it may not be a conscious thing, is the idea that I can meet someone who will then make me happy and have me stay safe and take care of me for the rest of my life. So there can be a lot of painful experiences when we meet the possible reality that we are our own knights in shining armor, or he may never show up ever. So you're setting yourself up for disappointment, for example, by having that kind of expectation, instead of just going to the party and being
Well,
with what is.
yeah, the flip side of that is traditional males being conditioned to be the knight in shining armor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a relationship many years ago, and I was in a relationship with a girl, and she has a really tight best friend. So I was kind of in a quasi relationship with her as well, just because the two of them were confidants, and the two of them referred to me as Kissa, which is short for knight in shining armor. And once I kind of found out that they were referring to me to that, there was an immediate ego boost because I thought, wow, that's a really nice compliment. But then there was also the, whoa, hold on, what does that mean? Are you really looking to be saved, and are you needing to be saved, and do you need a knight in shining armor? And so there's unwinding some of that conditioning is the exploration, I think, that we are talking about. I mean, from the way that I look at this and the way that Eckhart, I think, looks at this, and all of the great teachers of the power of presence in our lives, maybe not all of them, but many of them teach the fact that we already are the love, the joy, the bliss, the equanimity, that we are searching for, and that we are our source of all of those things. So I think it can be a very valuable tool that when we find ourselves in those emotions that we've been conditioned to perceive are yucky emotions, to go and explore and to say, well, here I am in this moment, and it is what it is, as you say. And there are people who say every moment is perfect because it's happening. And you can go back and look at anything and think about that butterfly effect, that all of the things that had to happen just perfectly so that this moment could occur as it is. I mean, it's a miracle that anything happens at all, because just one little thing happening somewhere along the way would evolve into a completely different experience. And so we've got the opportunity to just check our expectations and to say, what were we looking for? What need is going unmet? I just created a program around stress. And in that program, I ask people to evaluate what is the stressful emotion that you are experiencing telling you. If we think that, as I do, that all of our emotions are whispers of wisdom, they're guidance from our inner guru rather than cacophony from our inner critic. If we tap into those emotions, what are they really telling us? And almost always it is, we have a need that is going unmet, and we're looking to meet that need. Or there's a place that we're running into some old conditioning that no longer serves us anymore, that we're like the lobster that is shedding its skin, or the snake that's shedding its skin because it's outgrown that old shell that we used to have. And the only way to do it is to bust free of that conditioning and move on to a deeper understanding. It's a peeling back of the layers of the intimacy onion and getting to know ourselves more deeply and more authentically. So actually, here's an interesting exploration that maybe you could do with your Viking. The next time he asks you, are you looking forward to the trip that we have coming up? Just to kind of turn the tables on him and ask him, what's the answer that you hope? You've been asking me that question for 32 beautiful years, and I've given you more or less the same response for 32 beautiful years. But the question still persists. What is it that how do you hope that I will respond? Or how would you like me to respond to that? And in his response to that question, you'll probably hear the need. He's probably got a need there for maybe recognition or acknowledgement for the planning that he's done, that he's looking perhaps for an attaboy, and to say, magnificent Viking, you're a wonderful planner, a wonderful provider, a wonderful whatever it is, that he's got a box there that he's probably looking to get checked. And so, like, from an interrelationship standpoint, that could change the dynamic. But really what we're talking about here is the inner game of presence and asking those questions to ourselves. What is the need that I have? Or what is the worn out mental model that I'm sloughing off, that no longer works for me. And we've all got those things. I mean, we can look back and see things that we believed for a lot of years and practiced for a lot of years because it worked for a lot of years. And then all of a sudden it stopped working. And to the degree that we continue to try those things that are no longer working, now we're starting to tap into Einstein's definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So we're going to get the same result that we've always gotten doing the things that we've always done. But now maybe wisdom is whispering to us, you're beyond that now. You don't need to focus on that anymore. Evolve, grow, or just expand into wholeness is really the way that I like to think about it, that we are already whole, but it's our limiting beliefs and our worn out mental models that make us feel and create the illusion that we're actually more constricted than we truly are.
Yep. Thank you. I'm going to go to the questioning, the inquiry, because we actually have, and thank you for bringing that up, because anybody can do this. It's like asking the question about what's going on right now with me or with another person. So the Viking and I, he's not here, so I can't sort of have him on the talk or anything like that. But we have had those conversations many times. And since our talk is about expectations, releasing expectations, one of the things that's important for me when we are doing something and that question arises is that is the first time that question has arisen. So it's not that, oh, this has been going on for 32 years and you still don't get it. It is like, right? It's like that question is right now. It's not the last one and the last one and the last one.
Right.
If I'm going there, then I'm bringing all of that baggage and then I'm blaming him for something and I'm not being honest with myself. So it's, again, keeping in contact with what's going on with me and allowing that question to be in the now space and exploring what's going on in the now space. Releasing expectations in that sense for me can be, or for anyone, can be not expecting the other person to get it. Right? I can joke about it. I think you've been asking me that question for 32 years. When are you going to get it? Like, when are you going to stop asking? You know what the answer is going to be. Of course, in each situation, the answer can be different. It's the where he's at when he asks the question. And I have, I was going to say I have no right. I have the opportunity to expect him to get it in some way at some time, figure it out. But that's not my place. If he's meant to get it, then he'll get it. It's not my place. It's his place. It's his life. It's his inquiry, his journey, not mine. My journey is hearing the question and then meeting the question. So that's a way to release an expectation, is if I'm attaching some expectation to it, like, are you ever going to figure this out or whatever, right? So I'm just using that to play a little bit with, we can have expectations. We don't even know we have them. And then we end up in this completely other conversation, right? And it's like, well, this was unnecessary, but it was necessary maybe to reveal. But it's like every time he asks the question, it's not the same question because it's not the same situation. And he's not the same person and neither am I.
Exactly. Okay, so let's continue to pull this thread because this is so beautiful. So I had my little monologue there of saying, here's what you could say. And you beautifully had the ears to hear that in that question, the way that I was setting it up. And for me, it's a hypothetical because, I don't know the Viking and he's not asking me how are my expectations. So I'm projecting some there, and you have the ears to hear that by saying, hey, it's been 32 wonderful years, even if you categorize them as wonderful, there still is an implied expectation in the way that I framed that question to say, I have an expectation that by now this would have dawned on you. And that implication could imply that I'm frustrated or whatever. And your immediate reaction is what I hope our viewers and our listeners might tap into, that you heard the expectations and that became the pattern interrupt. That became the rumble strip on the highway of life. And the next time that he asks it will be a unique him saying it, a unique you hearing it, and a unique question that is being asked and heard from a certain perspective. And you still do have the option to just ask him, how do you hope that I will ask that question? But now we're in a moment of inquiry in the present moment. There, if you ask him that in that way, there's no judgment about the fact that you've been asking it, and maybe don't even bring it up that you've been asking it for 32 years. You're asking it now. What are you hoping to hear? And then listening for what needs does he have that are going unmet, and no requirement that you meet those needs or that he meets those needs, or maybe just merely recognizing the need will be enough to make the need just kind of vanish. But I was really pointing to that toward an invitation for us to do that inquiry of ourselves, that when those things pop up and we hear expectations, allow that to be the pattern interrupt, where allow that to be the pattern interrupt that is the catalyst to our own inquiry, to ask, what's going on with me? What needs of mine aren't met? What conditioning is running this show that maybe is no longer serving me anymore? I don't know if you hear that a little. Answer me. Yes, Kitty, we do see these questions and we respond to them. Although the answer me may be an expectation.
I was thinking that as like, okay, what do you mean, Kitty? Because are you meaning that you're thinking that that's his need, or
Well,
are you asking us for something? Yeah.
Yeah, she asked earlier if we ask the questions that are, if we answer the questions that are asked here, and I had put up one of the things that she had meant, hoping to communicate to her. Yes, we do see them, and we do see that, but clearly perhaps Kitty has got an expectation that I will respond to her more directly. So I hope I'm fulfilling your unexpressed expectation. And
wait, unreleased expectation. Now we're speculating.
expectation.
So, Kitty, I hope you don't mind. We're speculating. We're just playing. But again, it does bring up the opportunity to look at that. So, like if we use that as an example, if it is actually the case, here's an example of where there may be an unexpressed expectation or an unreleased expectation, and that is, of course, what we're talking about. So, thank you for the opportunity to include that in our inquiry and our talk.
Yeah, I like that shift of, when I talk about it, I normally talk about unmet expectation. And then, the inquiry process, you can go in and explore that. But just to that unreleased expectation is such an elegant and effortless shift that I'm going to be interested in playing around with that to see if I begin to think of them not as unmet, because unmet implies that it still needs to be met. But if we look at unreleased, that just implies that it needs to be released. And it just creates a little bit more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I think
There's
a
a different
lot
kind of
of,
ownership there.
yeah, a lot of, to the degree that we have expectations, we're limiting the way that this moment must unfold.
Mm.
And when we are truly present, we're truly in the now space. I like that phrase that you used earlier as well. When we're truly in the now space, it's like the options are almost unlimited.
Oh, yeah.
That we've just got an enormous amount of flexibility in what we can do and options. So, if the goal is important, if it is truly a need that we would like to have satisfied, then the question becomes, well, how many ways can you think of satisfying it? And if you're just with one, then you're going to have all of your hopes and expectations in that one thing. And if that doesn't work, then that's going to create contraction and tension and resistance. Whereas if you're approaching it from the idea that, well, that if that doesn't work, that's okay, because I've got so many toys in my toy box and tools in my toolbox that, if the screwdriver doesn't work, I'll give the hammer a try. And if that doesn't work, I've got a wrench. And if that doesn't work, and if that doesn't work, and if that doesn't work. And to the degree that we have all of the tools developed, for those needs that we really want to meet, we've got ways to go on to them. For other things that we just think is going to give us what we're looking for, and to the degree that we're putting our hopes in objects and materialism, that always disappoints at the end. People feel great when they get the new car, but that new car smell wears off eventually.
I think, yeah, I could say, I was just noticing I could say something about that, and I'm just gonna, I actually would like to circle back a little bit.
Okay.
Talking about, because you were sort of describing situation with a friend of yours, colleague of yours, where there was some stress or disappointment involved. Working towards a goal, since you're mentioning goals, working towards a goal, and then achieving the goal or not. In this particular case, the fellow did achieve the goal, and it didn't live up to the expectations, to put it that way. But It could very well have been that he didn't achieve the goal, and then it's like, okay, what? Or something came in the way, or whatever, or realized he was on the wrong course. I mean, you both actually did something like that, going off in different directions. But what I was, at least the way I understood you, but what I noticed showed up in me was this idea of giving space to what is. Like, at first we talked about positive expectations in connection with, for example, a holiday. And then we talked about expectations in connection with achieving a goal. And I think the idea of wanting something better, that with the idea of my life will be better, or I'll be happier when I arrive at that place. So it's a future projection place. And then the pain of that not being the case. And the idea of going from one place to another place, because right now, for example, my life feels uncomfortable. I feel pain. I feel some sort of discomfort, and I want something else. So I want to go somewhere else. I'm just going to share a situation where I was speaking to a therapist, and as I'm a licensed psychotherapist. So generally speaking, we're supposed to go to therapy to make sure that we're on an even keel. Sometimes things can happen in the therapy room with clients, and we need to deal with them. We need somebody to talk to. Mm-hmm. So we're encouraged to go to therapy, and very often required to go to therapy. So in a situation where I was sitting with a therapist, I was describing a situation, I was taking full responsibility for my role, for my experience, for my interpretations, my judgments, my understanding, everything. And at one point, the therapist said to me, I know this is painful. I know this is, yeah, the word he used was actually brutal. I know this is brutal. And I sat and I thought, no, it isn't. Where do you get that from? And that you had me thinking a little bit, or I noticed my attention going in that direction while I was listening to you speak, because we will often want to move towards something pleasurable and away from something that seems uncomfortable or painful. Where being in the moment, in the present moment, is being with what is. And part of that, if there is pain there, it is having the expansion whereby, whether it is pleasure or pain, you're fine. You're just fine. So you don't need to move away from pain because you have, for example, a window of tolerance that is expansive. It's like, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't feel painful. So I have no reason to move away from it. Now, this is assuming I'm not in a life-threatening situation, and then maybe there would be a life-threatening situation where I wouldn't move away from it. I don't know what the circumstances would be in that case, but the idea is, and I was fascinated by his comment, I know this is brutal, because it didn't feel like that at all to me. I mean, at all. So it is not the idea of time travel that you call it that often, and we've started using that expression quite often in the Presence Posse, becomes unnecessary because you don't have to move away from pain. It is not pain. It just isn't. I don't know how to explain it other than the word that comes to me is just expansive. So if I have a small window of tolerance, if I tolerate only a little bit, then I may feel insulted, for example, easily, offended easily. I may feel anxiety easily, panic easily, reliving things easily, because I've got a small window of tolerance. If I have become present to what is and have learned to become and be expansive, there is no anxiety, or there's no need to, but the words are not coming in English. I'm really sorry. There's no need to make myself smaller to cause myself pain. I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to react to. It just is. There's nothing to resist. So for me in that situation, I wanted to share that because a lot of people don't understand that aspect. It's like, wouldn't you want to move away from pain? It's not painful. It is not painful. So there's an opportunity. We talk about you can practice. This is muscles you can train your presence muscle, practice presence. Because you can get to a place where you're fine right now, no matter what's going on. It's not pain. It just is what is. And you're okay. So you don't have to find different solutions and look for ways out, because you don't need to leave.
Yeah,
I just wanted to share that.
Well, I like that sharing, and I'm just thinking in the coaching journey that I take clients on, one of the realizations that they typically will have along the way, kind of almost like a milestone of the coaching journey, is when they begin to no longer think of any emotion as a quote unquote negative emotion. And for people who have been watching this podcast or seen lots of them, uh, every time I refer to anxiety, fear, anger, disappointment, depression, I often refer to them as so-called negative emotions, and the scare quotes for those that are listening. I'm making the quotes with my fingers. That's really to a concession to people who are not yet ready to just see fear, the emotional concoction that we have labeled fear, is information. And sometimes that information, like if you are in a life-threatening thing, actually, I've been in a few life-threatening things, and fear is actually not that present. It shows up later
Yeah.
as I'm decompressing, but like, I've run across bears in the woods on a somewhat regular basis, and I'm fearful of the idea of it, and I'm thankful when the moment has passed and it's gone, and I take lots of precautions that I will be safe in those circumstances. But the emotion itself, I think of as just as information telling me about what my internal experience is in this moment. So instead of seeing these emotions as an indication of our circumstances, can we invite the possibility in that it's just an internal weather report? And sometimes getting up and getting out of the situation is the absolute appropriate response. Sometimes when you're faced with a question that you don't know the answer to, letting that idea steep, letting that question steep, sitting with it for a little while and knowing that you're okay to do that. Anger's arising, fear is arising, anxiousness is arising. What is that telling me? What is that
Mhm.
pointing to? And, it very often goes back to a desire or a need that's currently unmet, which may lead to conditioning that's no longer serving us. And that's part of the exploration process.
Yeah. Yeah,
Feels like.
exactly. It's
And
information.
you have today modeled so beautifully. I
Thank you.
mean, you have been present in for this entire podcast and just rejected like the question from the Viking or the question from the therapist. It's like in my moment of now, in my current state of grounding, that question doesn't really even make sense to me. And I think I've quoted this Rumi poem before. Many people listening to this will have heard it previously. Out there beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And when the soul lies down in that grass, the moment is just too full. Words don't even make sense anymore. And, that's pointing to a description of, describing us being fully present in that moment. And that's what I experienced in Kenya. It took me 2 hours to kind of tap into it, but I'm just realizing that there's such magic and mystery around every bend that all I need to do is be, to sit here, to soak it all in, and
Mm.
to be one with the experience, to be one with my inner experience. And we were out in the field there for 12 days. And for me, it was the 12 days of Christmas. The whole time I was there, I felt like a 5-year-old kid on Christmas morning, just wondering, what am I going to discover as I unwrap all of these gifts that are underneath my tree?
I love looking at your face when you're talking about it. Christmas, yay!
Yay!
I was just thinking, thank you for sharing that. I was thinking for a moment, or noticing that I sort of this idea of being really lucky. And the reason that came up is it suddenly occurred to me, like for those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do know, I do work as a coach and I do work as a psychotherapist, and I work as a psychic medium and healer. And the reason that suddenly hit me as interesting in this context of releasing expectations is that I cannot go into a reading or a healing with anything other than presence and emptiness. Because if I do, I'm doing the client a complete disservice. And spirit, so the person who has passed, if a person who has passed is coming forward and I've got expectations, I'm in the way of a very important conversation that may be the only one they ever have after the person has passed. So my responsibility is to be present to whatever unfolds. And I think in a way, I'm just sort of noticing that, wow, how lucky am I to have that presence practice as part of my work. I've never thought of it that way, but it just hit me like that. It is a presence practice to just be with whatever is there and just allow it to unfold and not get into anything about judging, interpreting, reacting,
Right.
Nothing. And the idea of the emotions and the feelings, I will often feel in my body, for example, and if they have pain, if they've been in a car accident, I can suddenly feel like wham, really hard in my body. And it's just information. So for those who may have that, what do we call it? That kind of work. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Just notice that being present and open to what is there in the moment and allowing it to unfold and not getting involved in it as a presence practice.
So I want to expand on that a little bit, because you kind of teed that up as I also work as a psychic medium, and in that work, it's completely necessary for me to do X, Y, Z. And I agree. To be. Yeah. And the same is true for me practicing hypnotherapy and hypnosis. My grounding before I go into a session is all about reminding myself, even though I feel like at this point it's so thoroughly ingrained, but I still go through the ritual of reminding myself that I'm there to serve. This is not about me. That, they're not looking for advice. They're not looking for my answers, because the type of hypnosis that I practice is all about eliciting and evoking the resources and the wisdom and the answers that people already have within them. And there's a big hurdle that many students, I'm also a teacher of this school of hypnotherapy, there's a leap that practitioners eventually have to make that some never do. And the leap is getting to that point of having an inner knowing that the right thing is going to show up. And I'm imagining, I don't have any psychic ability that I'm aware of, although, sometimes things pop up, but, I don't think of it in those terms. But the truth of what you said is ever present in the world of hypnosis. And I expect if we had a medical doctor that was practicing from that perspective, they would say that is such an important part. Connecting heart to heart with the patient is really job one for me, and getting the ears to hear what's really going on and being able to hear the answers behind the answers is critical. And I think a parent could make the same thing, a coach, a manager,
Teacher.
a clerk at a teacher, a clerk at the DMV, a cashier at the grocery store.
Yep.
Could all say, really, to do my job well, a very important ingredient is that my ego's out of the way, that my need to judge is out of the way, that my heart is open, my mind is clear, and I'm able to show up as pure presence, as pure intuition, as pure wisdom. And I trust that the right thing is going to occur to me. I'm going to show up and I'm going to deal with whatever it is that shows up. And we're going to make our way through this. I love that you're seeing that and recognizing that for the mediumship work. And I'm sure it translates to your psychotherapy work as well. It translates
Absolutely.
to my hypnosis and hypnotherapy and coaching work. And I invite everybody just to kind of play around with the idea. And you might want to rewind back 5 minutes or so to get Miriam setting that up, and just like take that on and think about, if I do the things that I do from this perspective, what will be the difference in the results that I generate? And we won't say what it'll be because we have no idea what it'll be, but go into that as just a playground to try to see. And that too is self-inquiry. That's playing around with the way that we're wired, checking in to, when we bang up against the edge of our map of the world, can that map be expanded? And in my experience, the answer is almost always yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and those almost always are still a work in progress.
As long as we live.
Yeah, we just maybe haven't quite got there yet. So,
well, Bobby, it has been a pleasure. We've gone a little bit over the hour. It's good to be with you again.
Yes, indeed.
And for the first time.
In this way, with this subject.
Thank you very much, Rosalie. We appreciate your comments, and we love to have you.
And Kitty as well. Thank you.
And Kitty and anyone else who has been following us or who is watching the replay. And remember that you can ask us questions or make comments when you're watching the replay as well, and then we'll read them and get back to you afterwards.
Indeed.
So, do you have anything quickly on that you would like people to know before we sign off?
Yes, I have 3 cool products that I have been working on during our summer hiatus. One is I've completed my 5th book, which is called Unencumbered, A Guide to Life in Flow. And that is, it's really best consumed as an audio book. And the reason is it's got 8 chapters. Each chapter kind of simulates a phase of the coaching process. In fact, this book is my effort to take the coaching work that I do one-to-one and to really learn to do it one to many. And my long-term goal, my big thing, I don't have a lot of expectations tied to this, but kind of my true north that I'm working toward is training many people in these techniques. And I would love someday for there to be a mindfulness champion or a presence champion in every government agency, in every school, in every prison, in every hospital, in every corporation, and everywhere. Somebody that was there that could serve the role that hopefully we do here for you all each week, and remind people to come back into presence and to tap into the power of now. So I've got that audio book. I've got an inquiry process, and that is called, I think it's called Irritation to Inquiry or something like that. I'm still playing around, but it is a way that when you find yourself getting irritated at something that's showing up, to accept that as an invitation to go within and to explore a little bit, and to explore, what are your wants? What are your expectations? What are your needs? What is your conditioning that is causing that irritation for you in this moment of now? So that's an activity. Actually, it's an audio program guiding you toward an activity, and I lead you through that activity that I call the open heart inquiry process. And it is the inquiry. I think of the heart space or the now space as something that is always either expanding or contracting, or sometimes remaining the same, but for the most part, it's always expanding or contracting, and using that as a way to, as kind of our mantra, just to notice, is the activity that I'm doing right now expanding my sense of love and my sense of being and my sense of presence and my heart space. And the third one is kind of doing the same thing with stress. I work with a lot of peak performers, and one of the things that they accomplish a lot. Many of them are accomplishment monsters. You know, they set goals and they're very good at achieving it, but they live in a state of chronic mental stress. And my big kind of audacious goal is to eradicate chronic mental stress. So I've been building some. I'm going to start advertising those on Facebook. I'll just place those in the Presence Posse group. So if any of those are of interest to you, I've got kind of a marketing funnel where I offer each one of those products at a deep discount, and the other ones you can buy as a marketing upsell kind of thing. But I'll put them all in the Presence Posse so that you can buy them all at the teaser rate.
Yay! Thank you.
At the deep discount.
Thank you very much, Bobby.
Yeah, you're welcome. How about you?
Okay,
What do you have
I'm going to
going
be.
on, Miriam?
Thanks very much. I was going to say I'm going to be really quick. And thank you for your patience, those of you who are still with us. I'm having a sale. I just decided, I was hearing people talking about back to school and all the stuff they had to do with back to school, and then going into the final quarter of 2024, and have we reached our goals and what's going to happen and all of this. And I thought, I'm going to have a sale. Let's have some fun. So I am offering 90-minute psychic mediumship readings and healing for the price of a 45-minute session. So 90-minute session, psychic mediumship reading and healing for the price of a 45-minute session. So that's 25% off. And that is until and including 30th September 2024. So until the end of September of this year, I'm having a sale.
So that'll be a week from today.
Beg pardon?
I said, so that will be 1 week from today.
Yes, 1 week from today. And you can send me an email at the email address. The link to the sale price is not directly on my main website. So send me an email if you're interested in a reading or healing. Send me an email and I will send you the link, the correct link with the discounted price. And otherwise, I'm still doing one-to-one coaching, and I have a couple of slots available for that as well. So if you want to stress down, power up, get confident, break through your barriers, get off that plateau, come talk to me. Same email address. You want to, let's get present together.
Awesome.
So thanks everyone again for being with us. And we will be back next week with yet another topic on presence. Have a great week, everyone, or don't. Release those expectations, and we'll see you next Monday, or maybe we won't. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bobby. Bye-bye.